people, real stories, real recovery advice.
People's pronouns and how they dress are important in their identity. When I don't see this,
Even in this route of recovery, get to real stories, real recovery.
I am Kat, and I'm on the road of recovery.
My name is Schilling. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and today I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, and I'm a member of my community.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us here at Pride Day in Cincinnati. So if you could start off by sharing a little bit about your childhood.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in a really conservative area in a suburb of Cincinnati. Well, I thought it was a suburb, but I actually found out that it's more rural. It's Milford, Ohio. So everybody there had a lot of the same ideas, same political views, went to the same churches, not very diverse. I had one African American student in my high school and two Asian students in my high school, and they were twins. So I had a very narrow idea of what the world was like. I grew up with a long line of alcoholism and addiction in my family. I mean, the family tree was just riddled with addiction. Yeah. My dad and my mom separated when I was really young, when I was 2, because of my dad's substance use disorder. I didn't have a lot of relationship with my dad, and when I did, it was, sparse, and definitely not personal. At this point, I had realized the effects that it had on me not having my dad around, and having this stepdad to compare him to, who was stable, and loving, and secure. I was angry too.
Yeah.
And so I was like, drugs are the reason this happened. I don't want to be a part of that. So when the people that I was spending time with, like, were experimenting with alcohol and experimenting with weed, I was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm not interested in any of that. So it was really easy for me to, like, say no persistently and, like, have this strong belief that I don't want to be involved in any of that. I can't pinpoint when it was that I was just like, whatever, fine,
I'll try it.
But at some point, I made the decision to try it. And I've always been craving belonging and acceptance. So I know that when that decision was made, when I did finally make that decision to do it, that it was to find acceptance. There was something in that moment that I felt very different and isolated, and I didn't want to experience that anymore. And the substance is what was going to give me the connection that I desired. So after first using substances like drinking and smoking weed, I feel like once I experienced that sensation and the belonging and the joy and the fun and just the chaos and the crazy that came along with it, it was fun. It was I felt like it was like this rapture, that allowed me to be the person that I wanted to be. I felt like I didn't need to hide in the person that I was or transform myself into the person that other people wanted me to be, that people liked me as the person that I was when I was drinking or smoking. And so, over time, I find myself in basements. I grew up in Milford. We partied in basements or in fields. So I found myself in a lot of basements, drinking and smoking weed. And I was the person that had this belief system, and it was like my mantra, like, I'll try anything once. And that got me a lot of attention too, right? Because people are like, wow, like, she's really daring. Like, she is super brave. Like, she's crazy. What? Like,
Mild.
And I like that. I liked being wild,
yes.
And so I remember seeking out different drugs. Well, somebody had pills. Again, I'll do anything once. I'm like, man, I really don't want to do pills. It doesn't really sound appealing to me at all. But I need something. I gotta have something.
Right.
And so we buy these pills, and we have to snort it. We're snorting these pills. And I remember feeling so sick. I mean, I was so nauseous. I'm throwing up. I'm on my way to school. I'm throwing up. And I feel like I'm not going to be able to make it through the day, But I have to get to school at least by a certain time. Otherwise, I'm going to get in trouble. So I fell asleep probably more passed out in my fifth period class. And the teachers woke me up at like 4 o'clock. Like everybody was gone.
Wow.
They let me sit there for like
Sleep it off.
hours.
Huh.
Yeah. Because nobody was in that classroom afterwards, so like they didn't realize. And like a janitorial staff member or a teacher or something was waking me up like, hey, it's well past time to go. Like we're going to close up the school. And I remember like waking up like, dude, what happened?
Right.
I did not like that feeling at all. So I'm just using what's available to me. The first time I heard heroin, I was like, absolutely not. Even though the pills that I was using was the exact same thing, right? The word heroin had a very different meaning to me because that's what my dad had been using for years and years. I'll never do that. That will never be me. I saw what that did to my family, but it isolated me. Telling people, no, I'm not going to do that, put me in a position where I was the only one.
Really? Okay.
I was the only one. And out of scarcity, one day, I decided to do it. And again, I was sick. I mean, physically ill, throwing up. And I kept doing it. And at some point, I stopped throwing up, you know? And it became normalized. I'm about 18 now. I graduated from high school with honors. How? I don't know. I have no idea. I think because I had such a high grade point average up until my junior and senior year that it kind of leveled out. Because I didn't show up for the most of my senior year. I got an apartment with a guy that I had met. And I'm working full time at Meijer. And I'm using drugs every day. I'm barely able to pay my bills. I'm asking my family for help often. So I'm at my apartment. We go upstairs to spend some time. There's people upstairs that we work with, right? And I go upstairs. I'm talking to the girl that's up there. My boyfriend's talking to the guy. And I'm like, realize that it'd been a while since I started my period. And so she's like, I have a pregnancy test. Why don't you just take one? And so I go in the bathroom and I take this pregnancy test and it comes back positive.
Wow.
And I am just baffled. I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I never wanted to have children. I wanted to raise dogs. I didn't have younger sisters. Babies weren't a part of my life. I didn't find being around children enjoyable.
Yeah.
You know? I remember my mom telling me, like, you have to stop doing these drugs or they're going to take your baby. And I was like, I will. I'm gonna get it together. And my mom was able to.
Right.
You know, she was able to do all the things she needed to do for me. I was the reason she was able to get her life together. And that wasn't my story. I had my daughter early. My mom takes me to the hospital. And I'm just like, I need drugs. Right. I need, like, and I have an excuse. Like, I'm in labor. Like, give me drugs. And they're like, giving me morphine. And they're like, you shouldn't need that. Like,
this should be enough.
This much, you know. And I'm like, I feel terrible. I'm like, don't know what's going on. I feel like my body is literally taken hostage. And I'm also still experiencing detox. You know, like, I am sick. I'm puking. I have uncontrollable diarrhea. And I'm stuck on a bed. These nurses have no idea what's going on. I'm in Anderson Township. I'm at Anderson Mercy. This is in 2010. You know, the opiate epidemic hadn't really taken hold yet, and they hadn't seen it in the suburbs for sure. And I must have just, like, blacked out at this point, like, the amount of stress that my body had been under. But I remember getting back and, like, waking up in the, the room, the mommy and me room, my mom in there. And I woke up to this cry. You know.
Yeah.
like not a normal baby cry.
She's also in distress.
And I'm still sick, and I hear it, and my mom looks over at me and she's like, what's going on? What's wrong with this baby? And I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
I don't know what you're talking about. Nothing. And I let my baby suffer. I let myself suffer so long because I was so scared.
Yes.
I wasn't capable of caring about anyone but myself. My mom took custody of my oldest my daughter, and she cared for her. And at this point, like, the court system had given me options for treatment, so I started going to my first treatment program, and I'm doing outpatient treatment, and I was offered Suboxone, which is like this new medication that had just been not developed but offered for substance use disorder. And they tell me, like, hey, we're going to give you this medication, you can't get pregnant, don't get pregnant, there's some things that whatever. So I'm going to treatment, I'm taking this medication, I'm doing really well. I'm living with this guy that I had met. He had just gotten out of prison. So I decide I'm just going to have another baby. This is where my belief system is.
Yeah.
I'm just going to have another baby. And I'm going to prove to everybody I can do this. And I can do it right. And I am capable. This one, I messed up. I really messed up. I don't think I can salvage this. I'll just start new.
And
made
maybe
sense.
Yeah.
It made sense to
Yes.
me.
Yeah.
It made 100% sense. So, I get pregnant on the Suboxone. They told me not to.
Right.
So I tell them I get pregnant, and so they sent me to an inpatient treatment center down here in Cincinnati. They first transfer me and get me put on methadone, because at that point there was no research around being on Suboxone during pregnancy. I'm still working on my case plan, but I didn't finish it. So when I had my second daughter, even though I've been working with the caseworkers, I had been taking my medication, I hadn't used any substances, I hadn't failed any drug screens, I have a place for her to go, we have a nursery, all the things, because of the policy that if I hadn't completed my case plan with my first daughter, I couldn't bring her home.
Really?
So they took custody of her too. At the 2-year mark, you get about 2 years to prove yourself competent as a parent. In those 2 years, I couldn't prove that I was competent to be a parent. Not the longevity that they wanted. So they gave me a choice, which didn't really feel like a choice, but it was a choice. You can either sign over your rights today.
And was she with a different family?
She was with my grandparents.
Okay.
So they were with my grandparents. My grandparents had met a family in the child care system that she was going to. Like, she was going to a child care center during the day while they were at work. And they had met another family there that had a child there. And they were wanting to adopt. So they, behind the scenes, had been planning and found a family that wanted to adopt Ellie. I'd never met the family. I trusted my grandparents. They're like, you can sign your rights over today, and she'll go into the custody of this family. My grandma's there with me, and she's telling me, like, they want you to be a part of their life. They want you, that they say that she can't have enough family. We're going to do this together. If I decide to go to trial and try to prove my competency as a parent, and they deem me to be unfit, I could lose any child that I have in the future. I'm 23.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a choice.
Not at all.
It doesn't feel like a choice. So I'm sitting there, and I got my grandparents telling me this, and the caseworker across me, she's like, Hannah, you're not fit to be a parent right now. And she was right. I wasn't fit to be a parent. And it wasn't that I wasn't fit to be a parent. I didn't have the resources in place to be a successful parent at that time. No mother is unfit for their child. Do they have the supports and the resources they need to be a parent? That's what it's about.
Right.
So I signed over my rights that day. And I walked out of there and I got high. And I didn't stop getting high until I was 28.
So another 5 years.
Another 5 years. And in that 5 years, I found myself in positions, in circumstances, in places that I never thought I would be. I got involved in sex trafficking. I was working in strip clubs. I was engaging in survival sex, trading sex for drugs, trading sex for money. I was homeless.
So what happened that, because you're obviously clean and sober today, so what happened that did somebody else tell you, hey, you got to go into treatment, or what'd you do?
So I've been in recovery now. My recovery date is July 3rd of 2018. So I'm coming up on 6 years.
Very cool.
I know. It's been hard. It's been beautiful. It's been joyous. There's been moments where I didn't think I could do it. There's been moments where I've never felt so ready. There's just been this constant process of unfolding and uncovering, and each time I get to a place where I'm like, I don't think I can do this anymore, and I am miserable and overwhelmed and scared, and I decide once again that, like, I'm not going to use, and I'm going to do something. There's hope for me. I get this new drive of passion that was driven by a purpose to be better. And that's still there. Now there's periods of time where I put myself in positions, or I get to a place of healing where I become so desperate to not feel the way that I feel anymore. And I think that I'm not going to be able to get any better. But then there's always that moment, or these, set of moments, a series of moments that I realize, I come to this understanding that, like, I can be better, and I want to be better, and there's hope, and I develop some faith, and then all of a sudden that passion is there again.
Yes.
Absolutely. And it's just been this cycle of that. I met my husband in recovery.
Beautiful.
We met when I had about a year and a half in recovery. We've had a child in recovery. I have a 3-year-old.
Oh.
And that has been where I've learned the most about myself. Our children are a mirror of where we need to heal. Period. I have a relationship with my 2 older daughters. With my oldest daughter. My mom still raises my oldest daughter. She's 14. It's been connection, and it's been community that has been the fortifying instrument in my recovery. Without other people, whether that be people that are in recovery, people that are advocates that understand recovery, or people that genuinely just want the best for me, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So I stay consistent by attending 12-step meetings. I'm a member of a 12-step fellowship, and I stay very involved in that process. I stay very connected. I support other women in that process, and I have women that support me in that process. I am a community advocate, which gives me a way of, being of service and taking all of the experiences that I've had, adverse or beneficial, and finding a way to bring that to tables where decisions can be made so that other people don't have to experience the same stigma and the same adversity that I did. And that's really supportive for me as well. But I cannot do that if I don't maintain my own personal program. So that's like the backbone of what I do. And that's where my passion keeps,
Yeah.
finding its way to the surface, is that like I can continue to grow and evolve. And I know that there's so much more for me. There's so much more for me. And every time I think that there isn't more, I come to find out there's more.
Right. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. You have this incredible, and you described it so well, this place of isolation, confusion, loss, just really alone, and describing that feeling, and that whether it shows up as the pit in your stomach or, just that terror that you're feeling, to figuring out all of the different pieces. And as you said, like, it's not a straight line from getting sober to being in recovery, ups, downs, and all over the place, but really finding that place that you feel accepted. And I think that's the thing that, like, really, you accept yourself today. And that's, what's better than that?
Right.
So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.